Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monster Party!
Monster Party!
Monster Party! Yeah! We're still doing this! Yeah! Yeah. Listen, I'm Matt Weinhold.
And I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry STROTHE.
And I'm James GONIS.
And this is a really exciting episode of Monster Party. We have one of my best friends, comedian, legendary comedian.
That just means old.
He's the oldest guy I know.
I'm like a tree. Becomes your friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dana Gould.
Dana!
All right, Dana.
Thank you for being with us.
This is the podcast whose target audience is men our age who are us.
It's like a daisy chain of just sending us this file.
How many downloads again? Still the 5.
Well, it's because our theme tonight is vampires. Yeah, we had to get an expert, but also someone who I've discussed vampires with way too many times.
That's very true.
Yeah, and we've been friends for, God, I don't know, got to be 25 years or something like that.
Yes.
And so that, so that's 180,000 vampire conversations.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, all good.
All good, yeah.
None of them bad.
Yeah.
How can you have a bad conversation about something you
I've
love?
never had a vampire conversation that ended in taking a swing at a guy.
Well, you just wait.
Yeah, before this podcast is over.
Yeah, have another drink, Larry.
Yeah, it's rare that a vampire conversation ends with "and stay out."
Okay, so let's get right to it. Slow vampires or running vampires? Which is...
Okay, no. The big thing is, vampires, do they turn into bats? Do they turn into wolves? Is it both? Is it one?
Is there a canon? Is there a canon, or is there a solid mythology that we should all stick to, or is it whatever you decide you want it to be? Or do you care? I personally don't.
Throughout movies, there's certainly been many canons, I would say.
Yes.
Yes, I don't like when the rules are blatantly disregarded with just some... I remember watching... I was flipping the channels and the Vampire Diaries was on.
Okay.
And it was literally, well, they can walk around in the day if they're wearing their whatever ring. No, that's not a joke. It's literally it's like they have like a special ring that allows them to walk. They have a special ring that allows the production to shoot during the day and save a lot of money.
Wow, it's magical.
So you're not big on that because the people are just. I mean, there's like some standard rules with vampires.
Staples. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like,
there's the can only come out at night,
right?
Killed with a wooden stake,
through the heart,
susceptible to crucifix or silver, garlic,
drink blood, infect other people who become vampires.
Yes.
So these are standard.
So these are standard things, but I would say all those standard things, if they're all at play in a movie, that's fine. But if someone then creates a vampire movie that creates their own rules, I don't have a problem with that as long as it's good. Like The Ring is stupid. Okay. It's not Green Lantern. It's a fucking. It's a vampire. Right. But make it good. But I have no problem with kind of messing with the convention as long as you
Captain Kronos. Good idea there.
Yeah, Captain Kronos, which is a movie, a Hammer film that was directed by
Brian Clemens,
right?
Avengers fame. Emma Peel and John Steed Avengers, not the Hulk and Captain America Avengers.
Right. But and Captain Kronos is a
assume you mean the Uma Thurman.
Sean Connery, right.
Yeah, I don't know what Diana Rigg was doing, who she thought she was copying, but
Uma Thurman and the guy who's Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, right.
Very talented actor. Very talented actor.
But yeah, Captain Kronos is a swashbuckling vampire hunter.
And the vampires actually take your youth as opposed to blood, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, which is nice. Again, that's a nice sort of, we're stepping outside.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of the
standard vampire story, but it's still within the theme
I'm
of
not sure I'm like a big fan of that.
Well,
not to be confused with Kronos, the Guillermo del Toro film.
Or Kronos, the giant robot movie from the 70s or 50s.
Robot film,
right.
yeah.
Who's kind of a vampire because he's
energy vampire.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's
true.
But the standard vampire that we all know and love, created by Bram Stoker's story of Dracula, is the big wealthy count that has the big mansion castle that sucks blood out from people at night and stuff. I mean, this is the standard.
Well, every vampire movie since the original Dracula with Lugosi, I mean, they've had to decide, okay, are we going to have this vampire turn into a bat? Is he going to turn into a wolf? How realistic or surreal are we going to get?
Yeah, and that is like the bat thing, which was clearly, I'm assuming it was invented. I don't think it's in the book Dracula.
For the play, maybe? Or
for the
maybe
in the play.
Or one of those pulps, maybe, like Varney the Vampire or
Yeah,
something?
well, Varney the Vampire actually came before Dracula, if I'm not mistaken.
I did not know
And that knowledge is
That
the
is-
reason.
The sound of pants dropping.
Avalanche of poo-tay.
Well, isn't the Coppola Dracula supposed to be the most faithful to the book? And doesn't he turn into a big bat thing in that
like
movie?
a bat
He does,
wolf.
like a bat monster.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's in the book, though.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But also, like there's the lore where they kind of turn into a mist, and kind of go through a door and come out. I mean, there's a lot of different,
Son of Dracula.
yeah,
They use
totally.
But all that stuff I like. I like the sort of urbane gentleman who has this kind of sex appeal. But it got to a point where you saw that so many times that then it became sort of like this satirical thing that you'd see in a toothpaste commercial.
See, but I think you're like making it really cheap here. The first time I saw a vampire film was when I was real little, and I saw Dracula, the 31 version with Bela Lugosi, and that really creeped me out as a kid. And the funny thing is that then I saw other classic Universal horror films that had that Dracula type character or Bela Lugosi, but then
it started to already go downhill after him.
But over time, then I what bugged me was we hear about the vampire and the blood and the fangs, but I'm not seeing them. Bela Lugosi. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think Bela Lugosi ever had fangs or something.
Never had fangs. Never saw blood.
I think that was forbidden.
But then. The Hammer
hit
films,
you in the face.
And oh my god, the first time I saw it, it wasn't actually. I don't think it was the first one. It was actually Dracula. It was the
Horror of Dracula.
The Horror of Dracula, and that's the first time that I actually saw fangs.
Well, he was a more feral, more powerful.
He was like someone described him as a panther.
Yes.
Yeah,
He comes in
like
a panther. It's great.
predatory.
And he has his vampire brides, and he walks in and just knocks them all aside because they're getting in the way of his food, and like all that stuff is.
He's a lot like Dolomite in that way.
Well,
He just comes.
speaking of Dolomite,
Get off my dick!
yeah. Well, of course, the Dolomite of vampires would be, of course, Blacula.
Right.
Right.
I
As
really,
I've said before, and I'll say it again.
okay.
If Dracula can make Blacula,
Yes.
can't we all get along? Apparently, what I love is the beginning of Dracula, who is it is Dracula in the beginning.
It is Dracula.
it's Dracula,
Right.
yes.
He invites in. He goes, "I christen you." He was a count in Africa,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And he says, "I christen you Blacula,"
Yeah.
and then he laughs, and they cut to the credits.
Yeah.
And I just wish they held the shot long enough for Blacula to go, "Ha ha ha! No, seriously, what is my name?"
That came out in 1972.
Count Chocula. Don't even.
Yeah.
1972.
How about if I rename you Fuckofula?
I've never seen the sequel, Scream Blacula Scream.
It's better.
I have
really?
it on DVD at my house.
Yeah, it's actually fun. It's actually like Pam Grier is this kind of voodoo priestess against Blacula. It's just kind of like voodoo and Blacula. It's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
And he does scream, so it does pay off.
Right.
Someone should remake that. Remake Blacula.
Oh, they will. But they'll do it all wrong. It'll be like the Dark Shadows movie.
Yeah.
So I tell you,
totally.
we are all fans.
Don't.
We
Yes, no. I believe that's your cue, Dana.
Go ahead.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Well, I just assume the pitch meeting for the Dark Shadows movie went like this. I know all of you probably think I can't do something worse than Planet of the Apes. Well, hold on. we're going to take everything that the people who know about this movie like and destroy it, and then leave it for the people who don't give a shit.
Yeah, like, who was that movie for?
Yeah,
Huge
I've
bomb.
created a visual drinking game for the fans of Dark Shadows. Every time you feel something die inside you,
Yeah, that was absolutely a movie whose target audience was Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, who I bet never had to pay to see it.
yeah, it made me love the Lone Ranger a little bit, just a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty god awful.
but the original show, though, the original Dark Shadows, which
Great
through Dana,
vampire character.
Yeah, he gave me a bunch of the original show, which I'd watched a little bit here and there, and then started from when Barnabas
It's
shows
fantastic.
up, and it's so good,
So good.
Yeah, and even in those episodes where, boy, this has been 30 minutes of somebody talking about something else somebody said that might happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I love it, and it's great, and everyone's acting their ass off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody tries really hard on that show.
Yeah. And also, if you get any of the DVDs of the show, probably my favorite DVD is the bloopers of
Yeah.
Dark
Oh
Shadows,
my gosh!
which is
Those are
these live
fantastic.
bloopers of all the stuff that's live TV they can't stop down. So it's flies landing on people's noses and
Yeah.
paintings and like
Furniture
yeah.
breaking.
Yeah.
and, like,
People forgetting their
Forgetting-
lines.
yeah, like
Oh,
really
yeah.
forgetting
and
the lines.
trying, and they know they have this line,
Yeah.
and they're not sure what they're
It's
supposed to
amazing.
say, and they just start finding words.
but they champion on, you know?
They
It's
do,
like,
and
yeah.
and those are great. Those are great glorious.
It also
things.
shows also the actors that will come and save your ass. That'll come in and go, "Did you mean to say?"
Right.
It's almost like a radio drama. So you're holding a gun and pointing it at me. You shot me, and I'm dead now.
Go on up to heaven.
I love that so much. I was just listening to Suspense last night. He's got a gun. He's coming at me with the gun. He's pulling the gun out and pointing it at me.
Ow! 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 Ow!
But like what he had said about like Lugosi and how like everybody at that point was used to, the debonair kind of like tuxedo vampire, and then Christopher Lee came along, and kind of like just kind of it was like it blew everybody away in a way, just to see that kind of style.
You know what really impresses me about the Hammer Draculas is how badass Peter Cushing was as Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So cool.
Ready to mix it up, like really get down and dirty.
Yeah.
and
Well, Cushing
fight.
had the greatest gig doing Hammer films because he got to play both the badass bad guy Victor Frankenstein as well as the heroic Van Helsing in like several sequels of both. I mean, it was great.
The ending of Horror of Dracula is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Even now, when it's like,
Oh, yeah.
now that there would still be 5 acts after the ending. Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great.
And-
And Brides of Dracula is also fantastic.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
With, David Peel of the
yeah,
Peel,
what-
famous of the Peel sessions.
David Peel, my favorite in his one film career, I think. But yeah,
But that's
that
a weird incesty story. That movie is really dark and sick.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I really-
Especially for the time, too.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
and-
Is it like his mother is like getting him chicks or something?
Yeah, yeah.
so he can live another day, and they got him
Yeah.
chained, and it's
Yeah.
sort of like that Twilight Zone episode with the devil.
Yes.
Where-
The Howling Man.
Howling
Yeah.
Man.
Totally.
And it's so great and twisted, and there's that talk about a chilling scene that works to this day is where the old crone is waiting for the new vampire to burst through the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, my pretty, come on, and you see this hand reach through the ground.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
I'm a sucker for that every time. The hand coming through the ground always, fucks with my
That's
head.
also the final day of the Republican National Convention.
Rand Paul.
I know this isn't the subject, but is that a wig? His hair looks like a wig, or it's a wig.
I think it's some sort of wound that healed improperly.
It looks like the poster for Thing from Another World. No, the woman like this.
Yeah, it looks like the forest in like at the Earth's core. It's horrible.
Right, exactly.
Well, what like we talking about Blacula? What about another '70s vampire I loved was Count Yorga.
Sure, yeah, kind of within that same. Almost,
Yeah.
it's almost like the same series. Almost. it
Yeah,
feels
I really
like.
liked Robert Corey. I
Robert
thought he
Corey's
kind of
great.
like never really became another Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing or Vincent Price, but he had like a little mini career there in the 70s where he did 2 Count Yorga films. And my favorite
Master.
is The Death Master, because The Death Master is like he's this kind of like new age guru who kind of looks like Jesus, and he kind of like infiltrates himself into this like hippie commune and just starts like the most easily swayed bunch of hippies, like
Really?
life is an illusion, and like, wow, man, you're really talking groovy stuff. Tell us more. Like basically, he turns them all into vampire disciples. It's great.
But I also like in that movie the way, like,
And then
it's-
Joe Friday shows up.
do you know what grass will do to you?
That's beautiful, man. Sure it is, son. You know what else is beautiful? The fact that we behave and obey the laws in this city.
But I love in that movie, like how like the hippies are hanging out, then the Death Master shows up and starts laying on his knowledge,
Right.
and then for some reason that just turns them all around. Now they're painting their house. And
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
gardening
It
and
doesn't
all
take
that.
much.
And then he just starts killing them all.
Yeah.
Thanks for getting the house, and it's like his own little undead Angie's List. You know?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. And but yeah, there's so many of these. But when we talk about like the sort of the latter Hammer period,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
like
I
yeah,
love.
because when they ran out of Dracula's and then they started going into Captain Kronos and all that, then they got into there's a nice little strange phase where like there's Vampire Circus
Love Vampire Circus.
and the Carmilla trilogy.
Karnstein,
yeah,
right.
the Karnstein trilogy. But the Vampire Circus is really probably one of my favorite Hammer films of all time.
And that was about 69.
Yeah, that was at the tail
Right at
end
the tail
of the
end.
whole
Maybe
Hammer
even
thing.
70, maybe, yeah.
So what happens in Vampire Circus?
Well, Vampire Circus is there's this town that's quarantined because there's a plague, and somehow the circus gets through the lines and just shows up. And there's this great line where the circus caravan's pulling in, and the Burgermeister goes, "Why are you here?" And the woman goes, was it Adrienne Corey, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes, "To steal the pennies from dead men's eyes." Which is... yeah.
And
And to get something to eat, I don't know. They're good.
then a light lunch.
Do you have an Arby's here?
Well, then you're getting up to one of my absolute favorite, not absolutely favorite, okay, maybe, The Night Stalker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well,
The
we're all
original TV movie.
72,
Yeah.
September 1972. Who here watched it the night it premiered?
Yep, we're all raising our
Can't
hands.
say I did. Can't say I did. I think I did.
I think I did, but I'm not.
I'm not sure.
I was in second grade.
Yeah.
Should not have watched it. Scared the shit out of me.
It got a big build-up on the network. I mean, it was a
did.
big
Well,
deal.
It was the
Right,
biggest. It was the highest rated TV movie up until Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Another fake story. Something that isn't real.
It's about. Oh, you mean the one about the killer roots that come out of the?
Yes,
yeah.
It's a follow-up
It's
to.
Yeah.
to Dave the Triffitt.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about Night Stalker was maybe it was sort of a turning point because now you're past the hammers, you're past sort of fantasy. Now you're in a kind of a gritty, real place. Maybe it was.
Yeah, it was
around
brilliant. It
the
was
time.
Las Vegas. It was brilliant. Putting a vampire in Las Vegas. What a brilliant movie.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't think I'm trying to think of what before that did that aside from say like
well, the Yorga films were contemporary.
yeah, but like but to do it in such a horror because even Count Yorga, it still followed the.
He still kind of looked
the
like a classic
formula,
vampire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
right.
Dracula
That's true.
type character.
That's true, yeah.
And you know, there was of course Dracula was 1970.
What?
Oh yeah, right, right. AD, where it's like Christopher Lee in modern mod London,
Which is great.
Yeah, which I love.
As Christopher Lee said, they turned him into Blofeld.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's true.
I love that movie just for the appearance of Stoneground. Bad
The
Stoneground.
band, yeah.
Band Stoneground. That later went on to make wheat bread.
Special
you're right,
appearance
though.
by Gluten Free. But
yeah, taking like the kind of hard-nosed reporter who Kolchak himself was almost like a throwback to like your classic 40s like scrappy reporter, which was so awesome. And like
the relationship with the editor,
Which is
too.
so awesome.
It's the front page. It's
Right.
yeah, right.
Actually, Jack Lemmon and Walter.
Yeah,
Miller.
yeah.
And and the way that like everybody kind of turns in his cool check in the end of that movie too. Like he doesn't get his,
Yeah,
it's-
that was a beautiful. That was also the Watergate era. Although Watergate hadn't
Yeah.
happened yet, it was still the cynicism,
That
the
vibe,
Pentagon
yeah,
paper,
right.
Pentagon paper cynicism against any institution, any bureaucracy, and yeah, they completely screw him.
yeah.
great.
And it's like
really
you
good.
almost need to wrap that kind of social satire in something fantastical like a vampire.
Yeah, or else it becomes Aaron
Yeah.
Sorkin.
Right. God help us all.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Different kind of vampire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Although I have to say, our hero, Aaron Sorkin is a direct descendant of Rod Serling. Especially if you watch this non-fantastical stuff like 7 Days in May, he has a lot of those. Every year we set up an election and vote for someone to lead us, but they don't. It's like
He gets a little speechy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could not just say your subtext.
But I guess what kind of, again, we take these side paths, but what kind of makes it okay in those movies is that I think I sort of look at it from the eyes of that time, is that to have someone so blatantly out and out say something like that is kind of shocking and amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's why, as you know, everyone knows this at the table. The reason he made the Twilight Zone was because he could get away with more.
Right.
He said that in that famous interview with Mike Wallace. I can say something about two Martians that I can't necessarily say about a Negro or some of the social problems that are extant.
Yes, Rod, but what are you hiding in your finances?
Everybody's chain smoking.
yeah. Right, it was a good platform for him to kind of like explore all those issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
One great revisionist vampire in the 70s was, in the early 70s, was Salem's Lot, the Stephen King novel, which was a terrific novel, and then got adapted to this TV miniseries, which was a departure from the novel in a lot of ways, but a pretty good one. And it's
For a TV movie, it was pretty extreme.
How did
right?
it depart from the novel?
well, mainly
I know the novel had a lot of rats in it. The editor said no.
mainly it was Kurt Barlow, because in the TV movie he's a Nosferatu. In the book he's much more like the Bram Stoker Dracula.
Okay.
He's really the James Mason, and
okay.
his henchman would have been more the Brute. But one thing I love about that TV movie is Lance Kerwin, playing the kid,
Right.
Mark Petrie.
James at 16.
James at 16,
Right.
or James at 15 that became James at 16 a year later, and he's got Aurora model kits in his room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Painted up.
That's right. He was like a big monster lover, kind of monster kid.
I was like, hey, wow, I've got those. Cool.
Yeah, that was great.
Right.
That was also those kits for our generation are such a touchstone of like,
Oh, my
I know
gosh.
that kid.
Yeah.
Also in the excellent, no vampires in it, but the excellent Matinee.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Joe Dante
movie.
film.
The
Yeah.
kid has a room full of Aurora monsters and stuff like this. So great.
Right. Totally.
It's so great. That I didn't realize that they changed him into Nosferatu. But what was really fascinating about
that was.
book, Stephen King has often cited Richard Matheson's I Am Legend as one of the big turning points in his career, where like he read it and went like, oh, I can do that. And it is like his attempt to put horror in another like suburban setting, like
Yeah.
there's no castles and stuff like that. It's just a neighborhood,
Right.
houses. And
Well,
stuff
you really do see the sort of the plague envelop this town, little by little, and it's the way that it spreads and the insidious way that it gets into the kids in the school bus, and there's some great set pieces. It's a great novel. It's actually
But was it just a choice of the filmmakers when they made the TV movie to make him look like Nosferatu? Though was that
I guess they were just going
'cause-
for the obvious.
Yeah. Okay.
But it sort of worked for it.
Yeah. No, I think it was great. It was scary.
That totally worked, because when you first see when that vampire like opens his eyes and
Yeah. Yeah. It was good.
I mean, I like leaped out of my seat, like, and also the little kid flying outside. the
Yeah.
window.
Yeah. Scraping at the glass.
God,
yeah. It was good.
Horrifying.
Yeah. It was good.
But here's an example of like I read that book, and the book is so full, and the character of Barlow is such this menacing, intelligent character. To have him just reduced to this snarling ripoff of Nosferatu kind of bothered me. Like because I think that's such a great story, and yeah, it was kind of fun to see it, and I liked some of the scenes, but it was just like they did a Rob Lowe of all things remake. That was actually a
saw
lot
that.
better.
Really?
Was it? Yes.
Huh. Okay.
And Rutger Hauer, and it's not bad.
Does Howard play Barlow?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
All right.
And
Okay.
so it's a little bit.
When did they do that?
What, 10 years ago or something?
10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah. Not to be confused with the remake they did of The Shining.
Steven Weber.
Steven Weber.
Great choice there.
Yeah. A misfire from all directions.
What about like kind of mixing up the genre a bit, like like combining genres, like how can anybody forget Billy the Kid versus Dracula? An aging 60-year-old John Carradine fighting Billy the Kid because he's after Billy the Kid's girlfriend, and it was like this early 60s. Like William Bodine directed. Really, really bad, but kind of fun.
Yeah,
very
totally
cheesy.
fun. Well, the ideas of like zombies in the Old West, I like a lot. I don't know. They're always trying to mix genres and put things in the Old West.
Mm-hmm.
It usually tends to work better in books. You can't really get the money.
Although there is a really good movie that's a vampire western, Curse of the Undead.
Yeah, that is good.
About a vampire gunslinger who
Yeah.
comes into the town and is this badass, and everybody who goes against him doesn't have a chance.
Yeah,
and
kind of 50s, yeah.
And he's sort of honing in on the good guy's girlfriend, and
a novel way of killing him at the end.
Yeah.
Which spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
I think they shoot him with bullets that have a cross embedded
on the bullet.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's good.
that's cool.
That's also it's like microchip technology.
Speaking of crossovers, then there's the John Landis Innocent Blood from '92, where he mixes vampires and gangsters.
With kind of the mob, yeah.
I don't remember much about it, but I remember Don Rickles having a great.
Don Rickles has a great death scene.
Yeah, that's right.
Don
yeah.
Rickles is great. The girl's hot, and that's all I remember.
Yeah,
and
pretty
Uncle,
much.
Uncle
yeah.
Forey's in it. But
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he's in all Landis stuff.
Yeah,
right.
that is.
Well, speaking of Uncle Forey
As
being
is
in
Sam Raimi is in it too.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Forey being in a vampire movie, one that I like a lot is Queen of Blood.
I was just going to say that one.
Blood?
Great one.
Yeah.
Queen of
Zsa
Blood.
Zsa Gabor.
An alien.
No. This is
Florence
Oh, no, that's
Marley.
Queen of Outer Space.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Queen of Blood is they got a bunch of footage from this Russian science fiction movie. Amazing effects for the time.
Yeah, cool.
And what they did is they built this story and worked it into the special effects, but it's all about this woman that they find on this planet who turns out to be a vampire, and she's slowly taking out everybody on the ship. And it's creepy and eerily effective.
She kind of hypnotizes the men,
Yeah.
and kind of like they just kind of, are in a trance, and she just sucks their blood, and yeah, really cool.
And she has a real haunting quality that when you see her, like, they catch her in the act and she turns around and she's got the little blood coming out of the corner of her mouth.
Right. Seen that picture in FM a million
Yes,
times.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you asked for it.
Of course.
Yeah, where's that figure? Where's that?
Yeah, really.
That would be a cool figure.
Yeah, that
to
would be
have,
cool.
Though.
But and then at the end, like they kill her, but then they realize that she's laid a bunch of eggs. And they bring out all the weird little jiggly eggs, little Jello eggs. Which the next party I have, I'm going to make Queen of Blood Jello eggs.
That's hilarious.
It's the next theme of the
Yeah.
And of course, how can we forget Dracula's dog? Dracula's dog?
Oh yeah.
Sean, I'm not
That's a
familiar
good one.
with
It's like
Dracula's dog.
Also known
Dracula's-
as is that Hound of Hell?
Zoltan, Hound of Hell.
Zoltan, Hound
Yeah.
of Hell.
What's
It's
the
like
date on-
Dracula has a pet dog, and who's a vampire, and he has an assistant played by Reginaldo, actually, who was Barlow, and like they come back to life, and they have to find the descendant of Dracula to kind of turn him into a vampire, and it's Michael Pataki, who's a great character actor who was in another great 70s vampire movie called Grave of the Vampire.
That's right.
But yeah, so it's a fun, but yes, literally Dracula's dog, and he turns little other dogs into little vampire dogs.
What's the date on that?
77.
And so,
Yeah.
does he have a dog, like a dog house coffin? Or
He does have a little coffin, I think you guys.
Yeah.
And Jose Ferrer is the Van Helsing type guy,
Of course he is.
No, this isn't with Richard Crenna. This isn't Devil Dog Hound of Hell, right?
which is also an awesome movie.
That's
It's a
a
TV
different
movie,
movie, okay.
with the two kids from Escape from Witch Mountain as brother and sister again.
Kim
Yeah,
Richards.
it's
I love
great.
those kids.
And Yvette Mew is the wife. Yeah, it's great.
that's working on every level.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Any-
I read that one right now.
Johnny Whittaker in The Mystery of Dracula's Castle, Disney movie.
No.
Oh my
this.
gosh,
Yeah.
I did not know that one.
There was a Disney movie Sunday night called The Mystery of Dracula's Castle where Johnny Whittaker and that girl from Escape from Witch Mountain.
Kim Richards.
There's
Kim
the-
Richards, yeah.
Kim Richards,
The sister
Real
of the
Housewife.
girl on Real House, right?
Oh my gosh, Man, I'm looking it up right now.
Johnny Whittaker is making a Dracula movie at this house, and they discover there's some sort of crime or thing going on in there.
Yeah.
Wow, is Sigmund the Sea Monster somewhere involved?
Is it a Scooby Doo
wish he
type
was,
thing where it
yeah.
turns out to be?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it really always ruins
But it
it
was
for
good.
me.
It just
was
wrecked
good.
it for me.
Sorry.
Do you remember the? I think
would
it
have
was
enjoyed
like
it if it was a few pesky kids.
there was like a very short-lived TV series called Cliffhangers,
Oh yeah,
and there was like there was like a couple different episodes,
there
like
was
a
like
different
a
story every week, like
sci-fi
three
one.
rotating
Yeah, I remember
stories,
that,
and
yeah.
one was Dracula with.
That was during the Michael Nuri. That was the nadir of NBC. During
Yeah, when they were
Fred-
looking for experimenting what to do.
Supertrain.
Yeah, oh my God, Supertrain! Don't get me started.
Was that
on
also
Supertrain.
Amazing
Fred Silverman.
Stories too? Was that around
No,
that
that
time?
was
No,
later.
this
That was
is
later.
like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, it was Supertrain, and that was Fred Silverman.
Yeah, but Dracula was one of the. It was
When they
just kind of like
changed
a new
the peacock
Dracula.
to the red and blue N, the ugly N.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that
I
was
know
dark
too
days
much.
for NBC.
I know too much.
Let's ruin everything.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, okay, so we've discussed all these classic ones, and I know one that we all feel very strongly about, love, and that has been done many times, but only once fairly competently. I would say it's a great film, considering when it was made. But Last Man on Earth
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
is
We talked about I Am Legend, the book,
Yeah.
and how that influenced Salem's Lot, I think.
yeah,
Certainly Stephen King.
Yeah, and I think that that movie, it's amazing how with the lowest budget, and they just had Vincent Price. That was really the only principal
As the
Last
romantic.
Man on Earth.
Yeah, as their manly
Right.
Yeah, the heroic.
heroic guy.
I'm going to kick your ass up and down the street. I'm going to open up a beautiful claret of whoop ass.
But also, wasn't it an influence on Night of the Living
I'm
Dead?
the sommelier of whoop ass.
But you're considering that's a vampire film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
those are vampires.
Yeah.
They come off like the.
They come out at night.
come off like zombies
as
a little
zombies,
bit,
but
but
they are vampires. They're supposed to
Right.
be vampires. In the book, they're vampires. In that movie, they're he has garlic. He has a steak.
Right.
And mirrors and
Yes.
but that movie is so creepy. There are so many pre-Night of the Living Dead sort of
Yeah.
weird scare moments. Anytime, like what always freaks me out is anytime you've got a bunch of people trying to get in your house.
Right.
That
Yeah,
alone, if that's my worst fear. I remember like when I used to smoke pot. And like the last,
Used to?
well, ish, a lot of pot. Let's just say that. But there was a time where I was sitting watching TV, and I look at my door of my apartment, and I go, anybody could just burst through there. Maybe I got to cut back on this stuff. But yeah, I mean,
door could be a dude.
God, that door wants to fuck me.
That door described it. That's a dude disguised as a door. That door wants to fuck me.
But yeah, that movie is so effective, and it's funny how each time they make it, like I like the Omega Man, but it's
Different
not-
kind of movie.
it's a
yeah.
superhero
It's a
movie.
silly
it's
movie,
really not even the I Am Legend at all.
No.
but yeah, but
And
it's
then
fun
I Am
though.
Legend is just a
No,
wash.
the Omega Man is to I Am Legend what Adam West's 1966 Batman is to Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, right.
It really is like-
Yeah. What if you just made another movie that had nothing to do with this, and then you wouldn't make me hate you?
What was he thinking at the end? Maybe the blue jumpsuit. Why the hat?
Can I get a frilly robe? I've always wanted a frilly robe.
Yeah.
Vampire film that I always love, though, I think partially because it actually has I have just this really special feeling towards Creature Features, and the host of Creature Features is the movie Fright Night. Because
I love Fright Night.
Yeah.
here you have this kid
Yeah, Fright Night's
who's
good.
watching this the Saturday night show that has the got Peter Vincent, Vampire Killer.
Right.
Let's introduce the next movie stuff, and it's at the end. It's like the end of these programs is coming.
Right.
Because Peter Vincent's about to do his last show or whatever.
Right.
And that said something to me, because I remember when in Northern California, when Creature Features left the air, everything is now it's going to go be Fox, and network, and these little network programs that had little monster hosts or science fiction or monster hosts, they're gone.
Yeah, there's really no such thing.
And so here we see this film where there's actually, this kid who's totally in the monster films. It's like the end of an era, and next door you have this vampire. Is it a vampire? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And
That's a fun
I just
movie.
love that movie, and it was a lot of fun, and
Some lovely practical special effects.
Oh, yeah.
all the way
Yeah.
through it, really fun. And
Well, what you said about like the
That is the one with Michael Nouri. I don't think Michael Nouri was the vampire. And
Chris Sarandon was the
Chris,
yeah.
Chris Sarandon,
Michael Nouri was in Fright Night.
Chris Sarandon,
Roddy
and
McDowell.
Roddy
Right.
McDowell.
and Amanda
Or as he was
Peet.
known in Mad Magazine, Rowdy McDowell's Stick.
Actually, in that way, it
And by his
actually
friends.
owes a little bit to Peter Bogdanovich's Targets with Boris Karloff, which is almost
yeah.
like he's an aging horror,
off the
horror
last
icon.
of his kind. Yeah, last of his kind.
Also great to see Roddy McDowell in a really fun, interesting role.
Yeah, great role for him.
Just a few years before he died.
Well, it's
And
very. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I watched the remake.
It was very telling, I was going to say, because there's no such thing as a horror host anymore when they make the remake, so they have to do a whole different take on it.
And it doesn't really work.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, it's
Well, they've come back, though, to a degree.
A little bit, I guess, yeah.
yeah, it's more of like more of a
Throwback.
An
Yeah.
homage,
Retro thing,
yeah.
like retro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
thing.
But the
But-
whole concept of like late night television, and I mean, we've talked about this before, but just like staying up late, trying to stay up to struggle to stay awake to see your favorite horror movie, and there's this host with you, to kind of like taking you along. And
yeah. You're not going to trip alone.
Yeah. And there's just no such thing, and no the generations today didn't know what that is. It's just a different thing.
Now, when it comes to like kids vampire things, like everything from Count Chocula to the Count to now things about
Right.
like that. Like, did you as a kid when you would see something like that? Did you like it? Were you amused by it, or were you kind of like, well, this isn't scary? Because that's kind of where I came.
You mean
from.
the vampire toys?
Yeah, well, more like like cartoon,
Groovy
like
Ghoulies.
the Groovy
Oh.
Ghoulies and all that kind of stuff.
These things driving me batty. Matt, I have to tell you, that pissed me off. It made anytime you were making fun of my precious vampires, I was angry. So I'm actually not a fan of the Groovy Ghoulians, as I know some people are, but
Like
it really,
I don't mind it now. Like now, I sort of find the humor.
Yeah,
in
I
it.
kind of appreciate it now.
But like also like
it's
when
like
it
the
comes,
laughing with monsters.
right, and there and like Count Chocula was fine because it was my cereal.
It was
Like,
delicious.
Yeah, that was all right. I didn't exactly know what he sucked, but
Yeah, right.
I'm sure how he was created.
Chocolate
but,
syrup?
Yeah, you're gonna have to read my fan fiction to find that out.
He sucks the cream out of Twinkies. That could be taken several ways.
back in the 70s, the vampire toys that were there were not a lot, and they were kind of pseudo Bela Lugosi looking.
Right, it was
but they
right.
always had the big mouth, the big mouth like that. But what I love is anytime you put lots of blood on it. Like I remember there was one of these rubber jiggler things, and it was like a vampire that had the big rubber wings, and he had blood all over his face. So that was like one of the coolest things. I
Just put
had.
some blood on it, and it's
Exactly. And I actually had the AHI Dracula figure.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the
It looks like the Royal
Monarch, right?
great. Oh, right.
And it depends on what I guess what year the figure came out. They made it for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years or something like that. And I guess maybe the first series he had more blood around his mouth or something than the
Parents
later
complained or
years.
something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but what about how come they didn't complain about the Count though from Sesame Street? Because the Count, I know,
He was
I
so
know, I get
benign,
it. I
though.
know it's sort of a play on words,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he counts things.
He counts.
but he is clearly also a vampire.
He is. That's true.
He has fangs.
Well,
He has
there's
fangs.
one thing that is true about the Count, the Muppet the Count, was that, like Dracula, he famously had fetid breath. His breath did smell like corpse.
Yeah, he had to sleep in the felt from his homeland.
What I always wanted, though, is I always wanted a Bela Lugosi looking action figure. And, I guess for years, I guess the Lugosis had the rights to Bella's likeness. And it wasn't until, I think,
Sideshow, right?
Sideshow. Sideshow actually paid the licensing fee, and that's when you got the first. I guess it's the 8-inch figure that came out that had a gorgeous likeness of Bela Lugosi, and then it came out. Then they came out with the 12-inch figure.
Well, how long do we have to wait for a Christopher Lee Dracula figure?
Well, there is one, but it's not by Sideshow. It's by
I'm saying, look how long we had to wait for that.
Oh, look how long we had to
growing
wait.
up,
Right,
right?
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
not done.
Well, and now we got Martin
Cage.
Martin Cage.
Yeah, who's awesome.
Who's great.
Distinctive Dummies.
Distinctive Dummies. And he does all these figures out of Thailand, and they're so beautiful. And they're and the guy's going through every single Hammer horror movie. Did a Night Stalker? It's just I wish all the best for that guy's health for the next
fantastic
50, 60 years, because I just want to see everything that guy puts out. It's so great.
It does seem like he's doing some of the figures that
nobody else has ever done.
Or maybe Sideshow looks like, well, I don't know if it would be that popular, so we're not going to do it.
But it's this uniqueness of I live in an age where I can actually own an awesome figure of the reptile.
Yes, that's right. The reptile.
That's
Who would
awesome.
make that?
Yeah,
that is
awesome.
so cool.
Or Blacula, or Carl Culture.
Oh yeah, there was.
Oh, that's right.
A
Fantastic.
Blacula
Great
figure.
Culture.
The hat did not work.
Oh,
But yeah, it's good.
But
great stuff.
Dana, you got to give them credit at least for
Doing it,
the
yes.
figure.
yeah.
Yep, good stuff.
Well, one vampire movie that I have a lot of respect for and a lot of affection for. I don't really have the desire to ever see it again, but it's George Romero's Martin from 1976.
I love Martin.
Martin's
Martin.
great.
I like
Martin is a movie
yeah.
that should be remade properly.
Yes,
I agree.
Which
Martin's a flawed
is like a
movie, but it's a great
1/100th.
idea.
Yeah,
a
I
great
agree.
idea.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
it's great.
Great idea.
How much of this is imagined? How much of it is real? How much of it is fantasy? And it takes place in this bleak Philadelphia of George Romero.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like this, and it's sort of like the other good, Romero movie. Because there's the night movies, there's the dead movies, and then there's that, and then Night Riders. Okay,
I agree.
but along those lines, now this is a sort of a little known movie that Sean and I are both giant fans of, Death Dream.
Oh yeah, Death Dream is great. Not a vampire
Directed
in the
by,
strictest sense. Bob Clark.
Bob Clark, right? Of Porky's fame.
And children shouldn't play with dead things.
That's right.
But yeah, Death Dream is kind of a variation on the monkey's paw, but in Vietnam time, where this young guy goes off to fight in Vietnam, and his mother, kind of wishes that Andy would come home, but she makes the wish kind of after he's dead, and he kind of comes back, and he's kind of zombie-ish. He's just acting strange, and it turns out he needs blood to stay, or else he starts kind of decaying and getting all fucked up. And it's great. It's a stark look at the disintegration of a family.
Yes.
Really dealing with Andy's problem after coming home from the war.
And
It's
the guy
fantastic.
who plays Andy is
a great
genius.
movie. One of the best horror films of the 70s,
really,
I think.
and really creepy. This guy is he's now, and this is a classic example of a vampire movie that fucks with the rules a bit, because he's out in the daylight, but he's a different kind of vampire. And there's one scene where he's back from the war, and he's sitting in his lawn chair, and the kids from the neighborhood are tell us what happened in Vietnam, and he's just sitting there, just eyes kind of glazed over. And the dog comes up and starts barking at him, and he just grabs the dog and snaps his neck.
Yeah, kills it. Yeah. It's just it's just
and it's
disturbing
so
and
out of nowhere,
great.
and so shocking and effective.
Yeah.
That's one. If you haven't seen that movie,
When did vampires become? I think it's funny. They did. Richard Matheson wrote a TV movie for Dracula that Dan Curtis made in 1970.
Was it Jack Palance?
Jack
Palance,
Yeah, great Dracula, but the story was Mina Harker was the reincarnation of Dracula's lost love, which is not in Stoker's book.
Right.
It is Barnabas Collins and Josette.
right.
3.
Right.
Also produced by Dan Curtis.
Right.
When Francis Ford Coppola made Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula,
right.
we're the only people to do the book. Actually, no. They had the same storyline,
Yes,
which
that's
is
right.
not in
Yeah.
the book. It's from Dark Shadows.
Wow.
Yeah.
So funny, yeah.
I don't believe in anything anymore.
Well, we can't do especially having Dana here. We can't do an episode on vampires without talking a little bit about True Blood.
Yay.
Dana Gould is the president of the local chapter of True Blood fans, and, but now I'm a fan. I love the show, and I can understand why some people don't. Do you guys watch it?
My wife does. It's
Not
hard
really
for me
much,
to watch.
no.
Yeah, I get it because there's a mood, a weird sort of atmosphere that you got to buy into. But once you buy into it, it has its own sort of
Mythology.
yeah,
kinda?
well, also, but like sort of comedic drama tone that when it's as you get into the series more, it's great and it keeps topping itself.
It's just a little absurd.
It is absurd, but purposely so.
Right.
It has a very fun comic book feel to it. That is, and I just I think it's always very entertaining, and I love all the stuff that they do with the politics of vampires and the fact that the idea that vampires are now outed, and it's sort of mixing it with like gays or any other sort of persecuted group, and it's a lot of fun. And if you're not into it, I really would strongly suggest watch 5 episodes and just stay with it. Because I really think because I felt a little resistant at first. I thought it was like a little like, this is kind of over the top. But yeah, it is. Don't
Well,
fight
it's a
it.
Southern Gothic sort of story.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like Dark Shadows in the sense of the sort of the soap opera thing. It's
Yeah.
heavy duty into the soap opera feel.
Yeah. Well, Walking Dead sometimes has a soap opera feel.
Oh yeah.
Or as I call it, Downton Scabby.
I want to see that show. The zombie Downton Abbey.
Somebody should write a book that's like a classic novel retold from zombie.
All right. So any last thoughts, last suggestions that we haven't hit before?
How about the classic episode of Buck Rogers, Space Vampire? A kind of Nosferatu, a very goofy-looking Nosferatu
Yeah.
themed, who kind of I think kind of sucks your life force, and he goes
Yeah.
after Wilma Deering, and it's really crazy and
If you
wacky.
run out of all other vampire things, watch that.
Yeah,
So
that's a pretty crazy one.
Is anyone here into the Underworld series?
I love Underworld.
I
Not as much.
I was just with Michael Sheen Friday night,
Really?
who is the leader of the werewolves.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that implies that you are into the Underworld.
Never seen it. Although I love Kate Beckinsale in a
yeah.
leather catsuit.
Yeah,
And
can't really go wrong.
you know
there.
what? It works
Every time.
Yeah, she does a very good job.
Right. I would look at Kate Hepburn in a leather catsuit, even towards the end.
Just want to take the catsuit and just turn it upside down and pour her out.
Towards the end, they put Kate in a leather catsuit just to keep her still.
But those movies are fun. Those are good. Again, another series of films that have a superhero type feel to them.
Yeah, totally.
There's Blood of Dracula from 1957, which is essentially I was a teenage Dracula, only with a co-ed. And,
Oh yeah, that's a crazy little wacky one. Yeah.
Yeah.
she gets infected with Dracula's blood, and then she grows sideburns and these
Yeah.
weird eyebrows.
That's crazy.
She becomes Italian.
Yes,
She becomes an old Italian woman.
hideously.
That's
ugly.
horrifying.
A 12-inch figure does exist.
That's true. Oh, I know.
Great one.
It is
Yeah.
It's a nice one.
It's good.
I love all the
Best pickup line ever. Well, we never did talk about Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula,
Bram
which I think
It's got a lot of good things in it.
Yeah,
I would use the word execrable. No, I actually like it. I actually like
I'd
it.
say there's some stuff about it that
It has Tom Waits as
looks-
Renfield.
Yeah.
It looks really neat, but I had problems with a lot of the
it's
casting.
it's all over the
Well,
place.
The
everybody-
casting
I mean,
is the main problem.
It is
Yeah.
a great silent movie.
I agree. And it is
visually, it is pretty.
visually it is
Yeah.
amazing.
Another great silent movie.
Yeah.
Mars Attacks.
It's cool.
Great
Yeah.
silent movie.
Yeah.
It's cool
Great
looking.
silent movie.
Well, just to look at, it's pretty to look at. Pretty to look at. Well, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula is a great silent movie. It's great to watch with no sound.
Yeah. Like just, I mean, for that scene in the beginning where Dracula is sort of like turning into these weird shapes
great.
and thing alone. I mean, that's
And that's
amazing.
all in
The
camera.
shadow. Yeah, that's the way I like. I appreciate it. They did a lot of the camera stuff.
And I love Tom Waits as Renfield, and we haven't even really discussed Renfield because if going back to the original Dracula movie, he's the scariest part of that movie for me.
Dwight
Yeah.
Fry.
Dwight Fry also
Yeah.
gives in Bela Lugosi's Dracula and in Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. Dwight Fry gives a pair of incredibly modern performances in very stage-bound, theatrical, sometimes, especially in the case of Dracula, sweaty, sort
Like
of
more naturalistic
mannered.
style.
Everybody gives very mannered performances.
Yeah.
He gives a completely natural, modern performance.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why you can't not watch him. There's a scene in. I'm obsessed with Dwight Fry. There's a scene in the original Frankenstein where he has to go get the door. Somebody shows up in the middle of an experiment, and he's going up the stairs, and he just stops halfway up the stairs and pulls up his socks. It was like that was just like
Not in the script.
no, and it was just such a beautiful.
We call
natural
that
thing.
in the craft a bit of business.
But like everybody else is like so. Henry, what you're doing? You know, it's like it's so great. He's just like this kind of like,
I'm hitting my mark now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Sideshow made a great figure of Dwight Fry.
Oh, that's right.
Amazing.
Actually, both as Fritz from Frankenstein.
Yeah, both of those are
and
great.
Renfield.
And
Those are great figures.
I mean, and talk about, like, for me, the iconic thing of any vampire movie is just Dwight Fry going,
Yeah,
It freaked me out as a
So
kid.
scary.
so scary,
Yeah.
so scary.
and then, of course, meanwhile, while they were making that movie, they were doing the Spanish one.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Which,
right.
With
is-
Carlos Villares and Lupita Tovar, which
There
I
you go.
only know because of Famous Monsters. I just can see the page.
Thank you,
That's awesome.
Famous Monsters.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Corey Ackerman.
Well, this has been an undead groove, and I would like to thank you, Dana Gould, for doing all you can and coming here and gracing our presence with your undead knowledge
Thank you, Dana.
Keeping vampires alive.
and
My-
making sure
with my
that
groaning storehouse of useless knowledge, because
And-
I knew what Fred Silverman did to the NBC logo in 1978.
to the point the ladies would like to thank you.
Exactly.
for all that you do.
The ladies are wet because they're nervous the bus isn't here yet and they really want to go home.
Well, that's another episode of Monster Party. Please find us again, won't you?
Yes.
And remember,
keep America strong.
watch horror films.